Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I'm joined by Jay Bond. How you doing today, man?
Pretty great. Had a couple drinks to loosen up for this, so I'm feeling good.
Oh, that's awesome, man, and I'm so glad to have you here. This is something I've been super excited about. For those of you that don't know, Jay is a longtime horror fan from Canada who likes to get drunk and talk about horror movies with his friends over on his new YouTube channel, Bloodbath TV. But he's probably best known for his Silver Bolo winning channel, Bloodbath and Beyond. Both of those, if you have not checked them out yet, as well as social media links for Jay, are all down here in the description. So make sure you're subscribing and checking that out. Silver Bolo, man, that is so awesome. Congratulations on that. That's such an honor for
Thank
any
you so
horror
much.
fan. So what was it like to get your Silver Bolo award?
Uh,
I can't even imagine what that was like for you.
I lost my mind. So, having watched Joe Bob like every day, it's been on since it joined Shutter. I mean, I'm a Canadian. We didn't get Monster Vision, so there's a little bit of like lost on me from until he came back, and I really understood why he was so popular. And
Yeah.
he's wonderful. And so I just would watch everybody just like keep winning these. I'm like, oh my god, this is a thing that they do. And I see all like some of my friends winning. I'm like, there's a chance. There's a chance. But like, it was I think the last episode or the second last episode of the last time they actually gave away the silver bolos.
Yeah.
And it was like 3 a.m. We were watching like uh it was a really obscure movie, like Day of the Beast. And I was hammered because we've been drinking for 5 hours now watching this, and I lost my mind. I almost had a heart attack. Like I took a video right when it happened. It just from me like standing up and in excitement, I'm like, guys, I think I'm gonna die because my heart's racing so bad. Like it was just so cool, and it completely blew my mind.
And it's amazing, man. Like I'm so happy for you. No one deserves that more. And it's one of those things where if I die right now, all right, well, what better time?
Right? Yeah,
I'm gonna go out on top, man.
an
So it's
award-winning
awesome.
horror guy.
Yeah. So we that was with Bloodbath and Beyond. But what can you tell us a little bit about Bloodbath TV?
So basically, Bloodbath and Beyond, we almost got to 100K subscribers, but we've been doing it for like 8 years. And there's a lot of stuff that we did back in the day that was just like, I'm not a huge fan of that stuff. Like
Sure.
from 8 years ago, I didn't know how to edit, but YouTube now starts promoting all this old content. I'm sure everybody out there is like, why is this video from 11 years ago being promoted to me on my homepage? Well, that started happening with us, and it brought in a lot of negative attention because people are like, how are you guys silver bolo winners if this is the shit that you've been making? I'm like, God, you're judging me on stuff when I just picked up a camera and I didn't know what I was doing. So
Right.
we also wanted to pivot and kind of get back to our roots and talk about just like some old school like B movies and nostalgia films. And it's hard to convert an audience when you've built up an audience of just horror. But we want to talk
Yeah.
about like Double Dragon or Street Fighter or Barbed Wire and stuff like that, like while also keeping horror relevant. So we just kind of made a brand new channel, and it's been going pretty good. It's been 3 months now, and we've put out like a ton of videos, like 30 videos there. It's great.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And it's funny because it's hard when you do horror-based stuff to try to branch out into other things. So I totally get where you're coming, but that's not horror isn't the only thing. Like you talk about Double Dragon and Billy and Jimmy pop right into my head. Like it's one of those things where these are the things we grew up with, man. Like I grew up in a video store. So you talk Double Dragon, you talk Castlevania, like that's my shit too, man. Like renting old NES cartridges and taking them home and playing them all weekend. Like that's what I did. So you
That's
talk
the
about
best,
Double
man.
Dragon, ghouls and or ghosts and goblins. I'm using the arcade ghouls and goblins, but ghosts and goblins and all these games that make you want to punch yourself in the face when you think about how hard they were growing up. Like it's hard to transition that. So I'm glad that you're able to find an avenue to be able to explore the other things that you're really passionate about. Because for me, it's horror movies, it's comic books, and it's baseball. Like
Oh,
those are the
nice. Yeah.
things for me that like I am super passionate about and I could talk about for hours and hours and hours. So I'm glad that you were able to find an avenue to be able to do the things that you still love to do while keeping that horror connection there. And it makes it even busier for you, man. An already busy guy, even busier. So I understand where
Yeah.
that comes from too, man.
Yeah. Well, we've slowed it down on Bloodbath and Beyond, just like temporarily, as we kind of focus here, try and get a lot of our old library, because we shoot like months in advance. There are videos that we've had for like a year sitting here that I'm just like, okay, I got to get these out, but I want people to see the new stuff we've been working on. I keep talking about how we're changing things, and it looks the goddamn same. But there are different things, so it's like really just a grind to get all this stuff out, change things up, and then maybe we would split back and do more horror, or maybe like, I don't know, it's tough. I want to do horror on both. It's just a different type of horror, like maybe popular ones on Bloodbath and Beyond, the other stuff on Bloodbath TV. You know, it's a tricky balance.
Well, no, different avenues too. And I respect the fact that you have all these. I do the same thing. I try to do 2 or 3 interviews a night, get them all edited, get them all ready, upload them all, and then just release one every other day. Because if the pandemic's taught us anything, health and safety is not guaranteed ever. So if I am sick for some reason, I can still have these scheduled to upload and I can keep it fresh. So that way, you know, as I'm on a ventilator, I can make sure everybody's still enjoying themselves. So,
Exactly.
Well, man, we know what you got going on in the future, working on with Bloodbath and Beyond. Not yet, you know, be going back to that soon, but also with Bloodbath TV. And we know what's going on now, the Silver Polo, dude. I'm so happy for you. Like, that's one of those things where it's like watching your kid make the game-winning interception, man. You're that pride. Because that's one thing that's awesome that about the horror community is how tight-knit everybody is and how everybody just wants the other person to succeed. There's never that jealousy. There's never that doesn't exist here. Like, it's a family and you want everybody to succeed. So when you see a friend of yours win something like that, it's an inspiring thing. And I'm so happy for you. But Jay, now I want to go back to the past and I want to talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And your first horror movie was
Child's Play. Back when I was 7 years old, maybe 8 years old. I know I see some Child's Play stuff in the back. You got the good guy's hat. You got a little creepy ass doll.
He's right here, Joy. He wants to be your friend till the end, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and for people that watch this already know, but Child's Play, I think, is my favorite horror franchise. I think it's the most solid franchise in horror when it comes to quality and longevity. To the point where even I think the TV show is fucking fantastic. I love the different avenues they're exploring with Chucky. Do you remember how old you were the first time you had seen Child's Play?
Yeah, I think I would have had to have been around like 7 or 8. It was shortly after Child's Play 2 came out. Mm-hmm. Because I remember going to like the corner store and seeing like the poster for Child's Play 2, which is pretty memorable, like the cutting of the spring, like the Jack in the Box. Mm-hmm. And so I went in and I'm like, I need this because this looks great. And I went in with my mom and the guy, I think he had like said, hey, no, you got to get like the first one. This is number 2. But like, stop recommending this to a kid, first of all. My mom didn't care.
He was pitching you. If you want to get caught up, man, you got to get the first one first.
Exactly. So I just had convinced my mom. I'm like, I want the one with the doll on it. This is the one I want. Because like I was playing with what I have, like my Ernest wind-up toy, my Urkel wind-up toy, and some stuffed animals and stuff. And so I was just like, I like this shit. So I want this one. And my mom's like, all right. And she went ahead and did it, and it was terrible. I mean, I remember it, and I loved it later on. At the time, it scared the shit out of me. But of course, that's going to happen when you have dolls, and you're like, I like playing with these dolls, but I'm going to throw them in my closet and lock it up when I go to sleep, because I don't need one of these motherfuckers running around and blaming me on some shit.
I just got images now of a wind-up Urkel and a wind-up Ernest coming out of your closet. Did I do that?
Imagine that's exactly what Chucky would. That's like how the kid would act. Like if something happened, then I'm being blamed, and then you hear, "Did I do that?" in the background. It's like, oh fuck, here we go.
That's phenomenal.
This drives to like why I was so scared of it at the time is because like I didn't want to be blamed for bad things. Like I was already getting in shit for stuff, which I'm sure I actually did. And I tried to say like, no, it was somebody else. Well, when I see that this is a problem for other people, I'm like, wait, this could actually be a problem. And there's things that, I mean, it still translates today with the elf on the shelf kind of thing, right? Where it's like, oh, there's little buggers running around at night and like saying it's somebody else's. I don't like that shit.
You watch the movie, you're like, Mom, sit down, we need to talk. I got to confess some things to you right now.
It was all earnest.
If you don't believe me, I want you to watch Exhibit A. It's right here. It's called Child's Play. It's more of a documentary than a film.
Exactly.
So this is a movie that, especially for a young boy at the age of 7, had to have so many impactful, scary scenes, man. So which scene would you say it was from Child's Play that affected you the most?
I think it was like probably like the death of Maggie, the babysitter. When she dies, she gets like the hammer into the face. She falls out the window, and I remember that like so vividly. But then also it was the when the detective or whatever, like Chris Sarandon's character, is like, "Hey, you're wearing good guy pajamas. Let me see your feet because they match the flower that seems to be somebody your size was up here throwing a hammer at this woman and killed her." And it was like, oh shit, like that's that moment where I'm like, this is where I could be blamed for anything. And that's what happened with poor little Alex Vincent.
And what people don't remember up until then is at this point, we haven't seen the doll move. We haven't heard the doll talk. We've heard nothing. We got, little Andy, little Alex Vincent going, Chucky wants to watch the 9 o'clock news. The cutest little shit ever.
And you're just going to believe him because he's so nice. He's just a nice little guy. And you're like, we got to believe our kid. And then you think like, wait, how could he possibly do any of this horrendous stuff? Well, we find out he doesn't, but man, it's that buildup as a kid that you don't want to get in trouble for things you either did or didn't do, especially the ones you didn't do, though.
As a kid, there's nothing worse than being blamed for something you didn't do. It's the most dramatic thing in the world. Why don't you believe me? I thought you loved me. I'm your son. Because you lie
you're
all
7
the time,
years old and you don't know shit about anything. You're lying and you put on all these fits. It's like, yeah, I get it now looking back, but when you're a 7-year-old, you don't know anything.
Right.
Think you know everything.
It's funny because I'm 35 now, and it's funny because we were just talking. I got a 13-year-old that knows everything. I was like, listen, man, you're 13. I get it. You know everything. You're going to turn 18 and be like, man, I didn't know shit when I was 13, but I got it all now. Then you're going to turn 21 and be like, man, I didn't know shit when I was 18. I got that shit figured out now. I was like, listen, bud, I'm sure when I turn 40, I'm going to be like, I didn't know shit at 35, but now I got this shit figured out. I got the world by the balls now. So you're always constantly learning, and that's what it is to be human, man.
Yep. I feel that exact same way.
So this, again, we talked about the influence of those scenes on you. But when, say you and I were at the bar having a drink and someone walked up and was like, yo, Child's Play, man. What would be the first thing that pops in your head when someone talks about Child's Play?
It's always Tiffany, to be honest. But it's never the first one. It's always Bride and Chucky because I'm a huge Jennifer Tilly fan. So it would probably be like, I would bring up whatever movie is relevant at the time and then eventually talk about Tiffany. Because usually it's followed with what's your favorite of the franchise. And it's either going to be one or it's going to be Bride for me. And yeah, it's pretty much what I would think.
I think that Bride gets so much unjust hate. Like people are like, oh, the meta. I'm like, listen, the meta in Bride of Chucky is fucking brilliant. And it's funny. Like at the very beginning when you see like the Michael Myers mask and the Freddy glove and the Jason mask in the lockers. Like that shit works, man. But Seed of Chucky, a little too much for me. And again, I don't hate Seed of Chucky like everybody else does. It's my least favorite, but the kills are fucking gnarly. And I like that they were ambitious enough to go for something different. So I don't hate it, but I think it's the weakest of the franchise. Now,
I don't remember where it actually ranks for me, but yeah, I like it a lot more than some people. I think the whole like Glenda situation is pretty progressive for the time. And I think that some of the kills, like the head getting popped off, is fantastic.
Oh, like Redman getting eviscerated under the table, or John Waters when he has the acid fall on his face and it's melting his face. Like, dude, there's some great kills in Seed of Chucky. I think it's one of the gnarliest next to Curse. Like, I think Seed, Curse, and the Child's Play remake are easily the ones that have the most gnarly fucking kills in them, man. They're so good. I love them so much. So we talked about which scene affected you the most, but now I want to kind of spin that on its head a little bit. What would you say your favorite scene from Child's Play is?
I think my favorite scene from Child's Play has to be like the realization that Chucky's a doll from the mother. Like when she sees the pack of batteries and she's like, wait a second, how has this doll been talking? She picks him up. She opens the back, sees there's no batteries, and then we get that jump scare of his head spinning around, asking if she wants to play. She drops it, and you're like, this is the realization. She finally can say, like, okay, Andy, I believe you, but what do we do with this little shit?
Right.
And I just think that's great. And then moments later, we finally see him kind of running around and attacking her and biting her on the arm, and you're like, okay.
And when you get that first realization, when he talk to me, damn it, or I'm going to throw you in the fire. And then we have him come to life.
You stupid bitch, you filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?
Like, that moment is so fucking epic. And, I remember just being a kid and being like, oh my God, like actually seeing the doll move was, again, such an awesome scene for me. Like, he's moving, he's hitting, he's cussing, which is cool as a kid, but you're like, wow, this is fucking incredible. Now, we can't talk about Child's Play without talking about kills, because some of my favorite kills in horror history come from the first Child's Play movie. There's a lot of epic kills in this movie. Which kill would you say is your favorite from the film?
From the first one, I have to go with the most memorable, which is the hammer kill, only because the stunt is just so cool. Even watching it back now, I just think that's amazing. Like, because like the landing on the car, I mean, watching it in like on Blu-ray, you can see it's clearly a dummy, but it's fine. I think it's still cool, and it's pretty shocking because you don't really know what's going to happen.
See, and that's my thing. Like, I'll take that effect over a newer CGI effect any day of the week, man.
Absolutely. What's your favorite kill in that one?
Oh, dude, it's got to be John, man. You shouldn't tell your customers where you hide these things, John, and he's breaking the leg. That part was probably one of the scariest things to me as a kid, man, because you're watching this guy get broken apart by another doll. Like, you're seeing this voodoo doll, and he's breaking the arms and breaking the legs, and then he just stabs him, and he bleeds out, and you're just like, oh my, that one scared me really bad as a kid, man. So that's the one that always pops in my head when I think of this one. And then you got the doctor when Chucky runs up and puts the electroshock on him and just shocks him.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like, that's another really good one, man.
I think why those don't really ring a bell, like from my childhood at least, is simply because like I probably didn't even make it that far. So like I watched it today too, which was good. It was great to revisit. I probably watch it like every couple years. Like I try to go through most of them. But yeah, like when you're a kid, like I probably turned this shit off like right after the hammer scene. But I would have told everybody in school that I watched the whole thing. I remember as they came out, I would watch like some of them or like bits and pieces and like brag at schools like, yeah, I saw the army one. Yeah, I saw they were at the carnival and stuff. And it's just like, I know damn well, like looking back at some of the things that I said, I'm like, that's not what happened in that movie. But I lied through my teeth just so I could try and look cool at the age of 8.
It's one of those things where you saw bits and pieces and then made your own connection to how those scenes connected together. Like, totally, dude. I totally get it.
Yeah, it's like whatever I can see through my fingers.
Child's Play 3 is my favorite in the franchise, so I love the fact you brought that one up. I think that one's that to me is where Chucky really becomes Chucky. Like, you get a little bit of it in 2, how's it hang and Phil? Like, you get a little bit of it in 2, but I think 3 is the one for me that's absolutely my favorite. So something I've recently added to the podcast, when we're talking about a movie of the past, I always ask, would you like to see this remade today? Now, obviously, with Child's Play, we've already had the remake of Child's Play 2019. So what were your opinions on Child's Play 2019?
I actually enjoyed it for what it was, but it's important to go in with a really open mind, especially when it's a beloved character. I mean, we've seen it screwed up in the past. Obviously, I feel really bad for like the Nightmare on Elm Street crew because like that was just poorly handled for most of it. This I think would have been better if it was just not trying to be Chucky. If it was the same exact concept without like a good guy or a buddy or whatever they called it in that. Mark Hamill's voice was cool, but like you already have this really dope voice in Brad Dourif, so it's hard to replace that. So I think it was a good movie for what it is, but so many people can't separate the two, and I completely understand that. I was pretty positive on it because I like the movie in general. I'm a big Aubrey Plaza fan, and so I did enjoy a lot of it, but I can also understand why people would not.
See, and I'm with you. I love the film, and I have people that are like, well, it wasn't Brad Dourif, and I'm like, dude, you couldn't. Brad Dourif's already done his thing, and it's still going. So, like, for them to try to redo a Charles Lee Ray in this would have been ridiculous and that's why A Nightmare on Elm Street, another reason I feel it fell on its face, because they tried to redo the exact same story of Freddy Krueger with CGI rather than practical effects. And I love the fact that they completely changed this up and made it their own. And I'd like to see it continue as its own Buddy franchise. Like, I'd like to see Buddy Bear. You know what I mean? Like, I'd love to see this carried on in its own thing. Because, it's just like when I hear someone remake a song, if you want to cover a song, if it's dope, it's dope. Cool. It doesn't take away from how much I love the original one. Like if you're going to do something dope, do it. And I would rather see a remake like Child's Play where they take the skeleton but put their own organs and skin over top of it than see something that's, like the Psycho remake that was scene for scene, shot for shot. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see something that's already been done. Give me something fresh with the same idea. So
exactly.
I got one last question for you.
For sure.
Well, technically I got two, but this one's not about your first horror movie. Jay, we talked about your first horror movie and how much it means to you, but now I want to go scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie, Jay? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Halloween, 1978. The OG. I've been a longtime fan. I've basically watched it like every year since, I have no idea, since I was like a teenager, and I just love it. It's one of those movies that I can always go back to and appreciate because I respect everything from, like, obviously the score, the cinematography, Michael Myers, and just like falling in love with the shape. I mean, that was like my second tattoo ever, was getting Myers on my forearm. My first was technically Voorhees, but I'm more of a Mikey fan.
See, we're the opposite there, man, because the very first piece of SledgeHammer horror merchandise I ever had made was this right here.
Nice.
Like, I totally grew up Jason, man. And the older I got, the more Michael scared me. Because as a kid, I was like, this is some guy, man. It's not a monster like Jason. But then the older you get, you're like, fuck, that's scarier that he's just a guy. That could just be my next neighbor that just went crazy. So
absolutely.
I've grown to appreciate Michael over the years. But yeah, Jason will always be superior to me. So
it's tough. That's like always the battle, like as much as Halloween is my favorite film, my favorite series between Halloween and Friday is probably Friday. Yeah. And if they ever duke it out, I think Jason's got the upper hand because, I mean, he went to camp. He's got archery skills. He knows shit. I feel like,
especially if it's Jason from the remake, look the fuck out. That guy was scary as shit.
And he's got like tunnels and shit. He'll pop out of nowhere, and it'll be great. That needs to happen.
I would still, even if they did a comic book version, like they did with like Ash versus Freddy versus Jason, when you had Ash from Evil Dead join in on it, like I thought that was dope as hell. I'd love to see a Michael versus Freddy versus Jason done in comic book form. I think that would be so fucking dope, man. So, Jay, I've had a lot of fun with you, man, talking about what you've been doing, your first horror movie, your favorite horror movie. But now we always end this with the same question. We're going to go back to Child's Play, and we're going to rank this on a skull count. Now, what we're doing, we're not ranking it. We're not being critics. We're not judging it on score, production, acting, nothing like that. What we're doing is strictly judging this movie on how much it affected you on first viewing. So 0 skulls being the worst and 5 being the best. What would your skull ranking of Child's Play be?
Oh, 5 skulls, easily. It scared the hell out of me and basically traumatized me for years until I finally just started liking horror movies. And like when you have to lock up your favorite toys because this movie has affected you that much, like obviously that's a 5 for me.
Yeah. And see, I would never give anything a 5-star rating, being critical about a movie. I think the only thing that I could even come close would be like a 4.99. Funny enough, would be Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I think that's the closest thing to a perfect movie I've ever seen in my life. But when it comes to how much movies affect us, I think there's easily things we can give 5 skulls to or 5 stars to, because just because it affected us to the max doesn't mean it's a perfect movie, but it was definitely the perfect film for me to watch for the first time to affect me that way. So I completely understand. And I love that, because for me, my five skull will always be House from 1986.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That was my first horror movie. That's why this is always here in the background of every video. This is what started it all for me. And to this day, I still watch it probably once a quarter. So probably 4 times a year. So it's just one of those movies that's impacted me to the very end, and I'll love it for the rest of my life. But I do want to remind everybody, I do have all of Jay's links down here in the description. Make sure you're subscribing to the podcast, subscribing to the YouTube, give him a shout on social media. Make sure you're giving him a follow. Jay, don't go anywhere, man. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.